Well, good evening and welcome everyone to this evening's program at the Wilson Museum here in the homeland of the Penobscot Nation and their Wabanaki relations. I'm Julia Gray, the Executive Director here at the Wilson Museum, and we're really excited to offer this evening's program, which is brought to you thanks to the Maine Humanities Council and their Maine Speaks program. And we are also happy to be co-hosting this program with the Castine Historical Society. You've seen the title here. You can see the title behind me. I just want to introduce, give you a little bit of background on Jefferson, who's our speaker this evening. So Jefferson Navicky, am I pronouncing that? Yeah. Excellent. Comes to us today from the Maine Women Writers Collection at the University of New England, and where he is the archivist. Now, the other, so that's cool. But when you read about Jefferson, you find out that actually what he's really known for is for being an award-winning writer whose work crosses the genres, including poetry, prose, and drama. He's also a longtime Poetry Out Loud judge across Maine. He's the author of Antique Densities, Modern Parables and Other Experiments in Short Prose, as well as the story collection, The Paper Coast, and the poetic novel, The Book of Transparencies. At the Maine Women Writers Collection, among other works that he's done in addition to the work with the diaries he's talking about today, he's worked with the Ruth Moore Collection and with the papers of children's book author Elizabeth Coatsworth and her daughter Kate Barnes, Maine's first poet laureate. Jefferson lives in Freeport with his wife, his dog, his cats, and his chickens. And I can relate to that. I have the dogs and the chickens part, no cat, but wonderful. So welcome, Jefferson. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you, Julia, for that kind introduction. Nice to see everyone here. Nice to see everyone out on Zoom. We begin by acknowledging that the Wilson Museum, as well as the Maine Women Writers Collection at the University of New England, sit on the unceded lands of the Wabanaki. The Wabanaki tribes, which include the Micmac, Passamaquoddy, Maliseet, and Penobscot, continue to steward the land and to fight for their sovereignty, which was significantly curtailed by the Maine Indian Claims Act of 1980. If you'd like to learn more, you can contact Wabanaki Reach, an organization dedicated to supporting the self-determination of the Wabanaki, wabanakireach.org. And you notice that the diaries that I'll be talking about tonight were written by white women, as are all the diaries in the Maine Women Writers Collection. It's a priority to expand the diversity of the holdings so that the collection more fully represents Maine women. Since I'll be speaking about experiences of Thanksgiving across time, it's especially important to note the absence of Indigenous voices. Nevertheless, these diaries represent a range of experiences that I look forward to sharing with you all. So the talk tonight will be divided between diaries and how they're used and function with examples through the Maine Women Writers Collection, and then the second half of the talk will be focused on Thanksgivings and different selections of Thanksgiving diaries from the 1880s through 1940s. Diaries allow a seemingly endless unfolding of days ahead and behind us. Individual diary entries are dotted center lines of a road that stretches out to vanish into the horizon of the future and that stretches backwards around the corner of the past. Diaries help us condense days into their essential meaningfulness or meaninglessness, or allow us to see days we thought would be meaningful that turned out to hedge closer to meaningless, or they let us see a day projected to be inconsequential end up full of importance. In this talk, we'll appreciate the diary as a physical object. We'll see a variety of formats diaries can take in order to lay out days in an orderly fashion. We'll examine the individually distinct, extinct animal of cursive handwriting. That was my favorite phrase to come up with. Hard to say. Individually distinct, extinct animal. And we'll sample from Thanksgiving menus across the 19th and 20th century. And this diary that you see on the screen is Grace Merrill from Saco in 1892. Oh, here we go. Okay, thank you. Let's see.
Sorry, we're not able to see this screen.
Yeah. There it is. Okay, got it. And this is Dorothy Wright Symes from Portland, 1944. And I also want to acknowledge the importance of saying these women's names, where they lived, and their diary dates. These are people with rich lives, even though we might not know much about them. I'd like these women and their places where they live and their dates to represent the dignity and importance of the everyday life. So why should we care about diaries? What do diaries tell us that we can't learn from elsewhere? Among other things, diaries give readers access to unself-conscious mind, a mind that is recording a day's events for itself to one day possibly be looked back upon. They give us a picture of what unguarded life was like and what rose to importance during a day. This is an unknown woman in Brunswick from 1934. Diaries also provide a rhythm to a life. Strung together, diary entries allow us to watch the rise and fall of days like mile markers along a well-worn highway. This particular diary format, you can see divided by the half hour, seemed an especially possibly needy way to write in a diary, a desire. Hi, welcome everyone. An especially needy diary entry if you had to write every half hour of your day. And then, of course, secrets. This is from an unknown woman in Brunswick of 1930. Diaries can be the safe houses of secrets, unable to be uttered aloud in everyday life. And this particular diary is the kind of diary we say, please don't lock that diary because we don't have the key to it. Diaries are also repositories of all sorts of miscellaneous but important pieces of information, such as maps. And this one, if you kind of zoom in on it, you can see is a map of the eastern United States, Pennsylvania on the left side, and on the right is New England, and with a little blowout in the bottom right of Maine. And then there's other bits of unusual information that are sometimes in diaries. This is Flora, Kate, and Alice Douglas from South Penobscot in 1908. And these are, I'm actually going to just blow this up a little bit, so people can see it a little bit better. These are these Wanamaker diaries are curious things to me. They have a whole bunches of information here, such as the distances in Philadelphia. That's the top left. Literally distances from this street to this street is so many miles. This street to this street is another few miles, and it just tells you what the distances are. And then the bottom says the curves along which the Earth's crust is faulty. And it's like a little mini essay that goes on this one page, and then goes, you have to turn the page and catch up with it. And then there are also these unattributed quotes that correspond with each day. That's an interesting thing that they don't tell you who wrote these quotes, but they just kind of are put in there to, I guess, inspire you to write a few lines each day. Or this is a particularly interesting one. This is Abby C. Buzzell and Standish from 1930. In case of an accident, in case you might come upon someone who is drowning, there is a whole list of things to do. It's actually too long to even read, and it's also quite hard to imagine following these steps if someone was drowning, but they're there in case you might know them. And I particularly enjoy the bottom left, don't give up, in all capitals letters there. And then another interesting thing on the right, about 3/4 of the way down, tests of death. Hold mirror to mouth if living, moisture will gather, push pin into flesh. If dead, the hole will remain. If living, it will close. It's kind of violent. I read that, I thought, huh, okay. Okay. Oh, nice. Yes, thank you. So the trick. And then there are also just room for personal eccentricities. And this is Mary Wallace McKinnon, Topsom, 1931, who really liked to keep track of her golfing scores. And you can see Normina, which is a name that I also appreciated on the left, on June 25th, didn't do so well, got a 71 there out on the golf course. And I also, these things are sort of interesting to me because the little stars next to Mary and Ellen knows what those are, but it's sort of an interesting thing to speculate and to imagine, like what might have been going on that particular day. Thank you. Okay. So then there are lots of projects, interesting projects that can spring out of diaries. So this is Isabella Hofstede of Waldoboro in the 1860s. And a poet who lives in Portland now, and her name's Dawn Potter, and she moved from the country to Portland and found that move particularly difficult and was sort of depressed by leaving her rich country life to move to the city. And she came to visit us at the Maine Women Writers Collection, and our curator at the time, Kathleen Miller, said, "You need to read Isabella Hofstede then, because I'll read why here, because she was depressed a lot, and there might be a way that you could connect." And in fact, Dawn really connected here, and she wrote a poetry manuscript entirely based off of this diary, kind of inspired by, and it was, excerpts of it were published in the Beloit Poetry Journal, which is an incredibly good poetry journal. And the manuscript itself was a finalist for the National Poetry Series. And it hasn't been published yet, but someone is going to publish this thing. And it's just a matter of time. So she wrote this little kind of description of the project at the end. The poems in this book were inspired by the diaries of Isabella Maria Hofstede, a resident of Waldoboro, Maine. Though her notebook spanned the years 1862 to 1908, an era of great national turmoil, they make little mention of exterior events. Rather, they are an intense record of her melancholy, her spiritual struggles, her isolation. My poems do not in any way tell Isabella's actual life story, but they are deeply indebted to her words, her syntax, her self-questioning. At times they quote directly from her entries, though almost always in fragments, erasures, and meldings. More often, they borrow her syntax and grammatical style as a framework for my own words. And then this is a brief excerpt of the actual text, and you see how spare it is and how it's kind of spare but evocatively poetic at the same time. So that was one interesting project that came out of the Maine Women Writers Collection's diaries. And then a UNE history professor is named Elizabeth DeWolf, and she used the diaries of Mira Logi, who we're going to see in a little bit, because she talked so much about food and different things that she was cooking. And this course is called the History of Food. So she had her students go through the diary entries and annotate each recipe, like why was she making it? Where did she get the ingredients? What were the kind of made it brought history to life to that particular diary. So maybe there's a diary project out there for you somewhere, because there's a lot of creative potential with diaries. Okay. Yeah, so then kind of zooming back a little bit, of course, there are famous diaries in the world, and such as Nelson Mandela's Conversations with Myself, which allow readers to peer into the inner mind of one of the icons of the 20th century. And then also Anne Frank presents the humanity of a young girl inside of one of the most brutal times in history, and which are all particularly, I love both of those as diaries, but however, neither the times nor the people need to be extraordinary for a diary to be valuable. Sometimes the ordinary is just as captivating as the extraordinary. And this is Grace Hoyt Skowhegan, 1932. So another thing that sometimes I think we're thinking about when we're working with diaries, like what is kind of challenging or difficult when interpreting and using diaries. So one of the things is that some people are just sporadic diary keepers, and entries are kind of spread out all over the place. So this is a good example of it. So diaries are idiosyncratic records. People use diaries very differently. Sometimes entries are sporadic, spread out across months without any seeming reason, and leaving a reader to wonder what happened in between entries. And this is one of those times where you can see that this is Agnes Glover, Hartford, Maine, 1888. You see she just started in June, not a particular day, and then jumped to June 23rd, and then June 30th, and then she's into July. And then I haven't quite figured out what the writing on the right side of that is, but it's a strikingly beautiful penmanship. I also think about that. Okay. Yes. And then there are some diaries are written almost exclusively in shorthand, and this is by all we know her is by E. Mac V, because she abbreviated her name and we didn't know what her name is. It's from Brunswick in 1936. So some diaries are written almost in shorthand that only the author or their close family will know. Abbreviations and acronyms can scatter across entries, leaving the reading experience to feel like gazing at a block of Swiss cheese, wondering what's in the holes. So you can see these abbreviations of names and FRJ at the bottom, and we don't know who those people are, but there's somebody. And then, of course, there's handwriting, and if you were educated after 2010, then the cursive handwriting in lots of these diaries will look like a monstrous foreign language to you. And even if you can read cursive handwriting, then you also have illegible handwriting. And this is kind of a fuzzy slide of illegible handwriting, so it's doubly illegible. But that was a fun thing to do. Internet search on illegible handwriting. There's a lot of illegible handwriting out there, and this was an example of it. Almost looks like you could read it, but when you look at it, it knows what it says. Okay. Thanks. Okay. So an overview of the Maine Women Writers Collections. We have something called the manuscript volumes, which contains these different volumes of diaries from people. And this is Abby C. Buzzell Standish, 1930. And we have about 100 diaries in the collection, and it's hard for us to particularly name the exact number because they're spread in different collections and we haven't collected them in one particular place. But they do span from 1860s to the 1990s. And this is our most recent 1998 from Lucy C. Williams on Vinyl Haven Island. And then there are some special considerations when you're working with diaries, what you can and can't do. And sometimes these diaries have very delicate bindings. This is Effie Mae Gray Cooper, 1934. Some of the bindings are just falling apart, and we have to have conservators come in to help stabilize them. And some of them you would just have to be really careful with them. And then, of course, there's a lot of labor-intensive scanning with diaries. So people will often see, we have a diary online, and they'll contact us and say, can we see this diary? And of course, it's hundreds of pages in this diary, and it's just me at the scanner scanning one page at a time. So usually you can only do so much with that. And then, okay, now we're getting into the sort of activity of the night. Yeah. So I thought what we could do is to try to transcribe this. So either maybe you're at home, you might have a pen and pencil, or open up a keyboard and try to transcribe this. And those of you here, if you feel like that's a fun thing to transcribe, see if you can give this a try. So this is Mira Logie from Leamington in 1934. So I'll let you, for those of you who want to give it a look or give it a try, I'll give you a few moments here to work on Mirologi's penmanship. Yes, yes, that's it. Banking. Someone said banking. That's a hard one at the end. Banking. Yes, yes. Did some banking. Yeah. Yeah. Nice. Yeah, nice. Right. Oh, good. I think I hear we're going to have to employ you for transcription at the Maine Women Writers Collection. Yeah, it is. It is. Some people are particularly good at reading handwriting. Okay. Anybody want to read this to us?
Perfect Indian summer day.
Yes.
Painted, clean windows on outside, and you very well on doing away things for winter.
Yes. Winter comfort. Yes. Yep.
Arthur came at dark, and we had a nice supper together. An evening visit. Frost has left the ground. Oh, so that's not a person name for it.
Yes. Yes. That's a particularly poetic line there. Frost has left the ground.
Banking.
Banking.
And we're still questioning you. Maybe rating makes more sense.
Yes. Sometimes you have to use what makes sense. Yes. Yes. Yes.
So my guess would be the evergreen bank from home.
That's a great idea. Yes. Yes. See, we don't know these things, right?
Okay.
Yeah. I also this particular diary, Arthur is her grown son who lives up the road, and she's a widow, and he is basically the person who comes to see her. So each day, without fails, mention whether Arthur came or not. And sometimes he doesn't come, and you can tell that she is not very happy about that. But sometimes he comes, often he comes, and you do things for her, and she's very happy about it.
She's thrifty and she's reusing a 19, like, just because
Yeah.
it's quite, I'm not gonna use it, I'm probably gonna use it.
I know. Sort of confusing from the archivist standpoint, like, what? Okay, all right. Yeah.
The virtual audience.
Yes, yes, here, let's so there is there's the inscription, the transcription for everybody on Zoom. Perfect Indian summer day. Yes, and that goes for anybody out there on Zoom. If you're particularly good at transcription, we want to talk to you. Okay. So that was your warm-up. That was the easy one. Now, Delamain noise from Norway, 1943. Haley is blowing it up. This one is a little harder.
Well,
Yes, yes, oh boy.
and stairs.
I feel your pain here.
Oh, well, maybe we don't.
I can the end is sewed and had radio. I can tell you that.
Wow.
It's an interesting, she's always, well, sewed. I don't know how you could ever figure out so, but she just said it enough. And her particular wording is always had radio, or radioed sometimes as a verb.
Like, does that mean music or does that mean like calling someone?
Music or listening to it, yes, or like whatever it is. Yeah, yeah, as entertainment, yeah. Okay, yeah.
That makes no sense.
Yeah.
Maybe what we could do, I'll go.
We have a guess that the line is Stu hum them for me.
Yes, I think that's right. Yes,
Whatever then is. Yeah.
whatever that, yeah, so let's, well, maybe what we'll do is we'll go forward and then we'll go back. So here's the transcription. Cold, snowing very little, cleaned up George's and Hal's room. Also halls and stairs, sewed on slips, went down to Gert's. She hung them for me. I can see how you would say stew too. Sewed and had radio. So there's the, let's more. Those particularly sewed is very difficult to get. The E's and the W's just blend together. And she's also in her mid-70s at this point, and she is not slowing down for anybody.
I think when you hit next to the automatically.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah, great. Okay. You all did very well on that transcription. Okay, so that's kind of the end of this part of the talk, and I just wanted to mention that if you know someone who keeps a diary, you have a diary of a family member, or you hear of a diary somewhere like that, we're always interested in collecting diaries and finding out little bits about them. And there are some real magical things in diaries. So if you're interested, talk to me or contact our curator, Sarah Baker, at the Maine Women Writers Collection. On to Thanksgiving. So this is kind of the exciting part of the talk. And I mean, the other part was exciting enough, but Thanksgiving with food, always more exciting. So this is a photo by Ethel Godfrey Loud, 1901. And this is from Smith College, where she was a student. She was from Bangor originally. But yes, thank you, Haley. So maybe we can look at the photo and then we'll look at the menus. So this is that distinctive blue tint of a cyanotype. This beautiful Thanksgiving meal setup. I appreciate the masks or whatever is on the bureau in the background there. And you can see a little S. Smith pennant there.
Also, there's a chafing dish, which was extremely popular in this time period for college girls.
Yes, yes, Welsh rarebit or something like that. Yes, yes. There's Elizabeth DeWolf in that History of Food. She talks about how that particular appliance was outlawed in UNE or what is Westbrook College at a certain time when people snuck them in and used them. Okay, so then let's see if we can do the menu part below that photo. Just kind of move it down. Yeah. See, it's a little bit. Yeah, there. Okay.
Sorry.
Oh boy.
Sometimes turn this upside down.
Yes.
Oh, my
Well, let's just read it. I can read it from here. Thanksgiving spread menu: roast turkey, cranberry jelly, crackers, cookies, olives, leeks. That was it. I like that. Leeks, nuts, raisins, candy, figs, pickles, oranges, grape juice.
And how many people came?
Good question. I don't know.
Did they get to sit down at all?
Yeah.
So many questions. I bet so. One of these things with diaries, sometimes you get a little information, then you're like, well, what else is there? So, yeah. Okay. So now we'll just kind of run through a few of these diaries. So this is Bertha Connell, Waterville, 1896. Let's just clean that up. So this is a nice one to start, I thought. Cloudy all day, snow last night, hailed this AM. Today is Thanksgiving. E and I went to Goodwill this evening. Uncle Rufus sent up a turkey. Mrs. Wing sent over a bundle of clothes. There were 3 suits for me. And if anybody has questions or comments about these things as we're going through, we'll look at a bunch. Feel free to put them in the chat or shout them out or whatever you'd like. So this is Effie Mae Gray Cooper, 1934. This one kind of drives me crazy because she's writing across the lines. And it's kind of difficult to read, but I love the name. So Thanksgiving Day, lovely and warm, just like spring, capital S. Lisbon boys came, Vert came with them, Seth and Rab something came last night. He was down wild tonight. Vert is staying with us. Not sure what that is. Cobb, okay. Oh, yes, but Cobb, yeah, Cobb Redder or Retta. I think Retta Wynn Evelyn came late today. Went home. Frank Wynn stayed. We had goose for dinner. Yeah, plenty. Vert, Andrea, to these names. These are names. And there's Retta again. Retta and Guy. Retta and somebody. And Lisbon came for a few minutes. They brought our radio back. And then I keep reading that end as plenty, my lake, plenty of cake. I don't know what that last is. Something like that. So then now we have a menu from Eva Twist, Waterville, 1943. Baked chicken with dressing and gravy, squashed turnip, hot biscuits, cranberry sauce, mustard pickles, sugar cookies, mince pie, pumpkin pie, chocolate cake with orange icing, coffee, apples with name cards for favors. Yeah, more, that's how I like my Thanksgiving. Yes, more dessert. Yeah, and I also like particularly at the end here. The apples with name cards for favors, colon. And maybe it goes on to the other page or what, or maybe it doesn't. Yeah.
So that was a war year.
Yes, right. Yeah. Yeah, maybe they made up for dessert. Yeah.
Yes, online it's mashed squash.
Yeah.
Oh, it's mashed. Yes, good. Rather than wash. I thought like wash doesn't sound so good. Mashed sounds much better. Yes. Sometimes
They were making what on sugar and butter, I think.
yes, yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
If you were in the farm, you probably have to.
Yeah. Well, you still have sugar rationing.
Right, yes.
All the other stuff we could get. Yeah, I'm surprised how much sugar is going into the meal.
Yes. Yes, for everybody on Zoom, people there were just commenting about how much sugar is going into this meal. Okay, now we're on to Helen Graham Clark, South Portland, 1927. Thursday, Thanksgiving, went up to Edna's and played cards all afternoon and evening. Faye something was there. And that's it. No mention of food, no mention of doing anything, just playing cards all day.
Much less stressful.
Yes, right? Much less stressful, much less work. Sounds quite enjoyable. Martha A. Aldrich, Gorham, 1880. Thanksgiving Day, Road or something, and Wilbur here, Jenny something, and stayed all night. LaVille and Jane and Jenny went up to Barry's to a dance.
It's not script.
Yeah, it's particularly nice script, yeah. And I like the idea of having a dance on Thanksgiving night. So Mary T. Perley, Naples, 1871. Oh, this one is very hard to read. But another sporadic entries. And Thanksgiving is about halfway down the screen here on the 30th. And these are just one-line entries here. So Thanksgiving Day, a little party here. So brief, but you can tell she had fun, a little party here.
Interesting that it's on the 30th.
Yeah, so late, yeah.
Yeah.
So Nancy B. Smith, West Brooksville, 1904. Let's go this way. So Thanksgiving Day, Lester came early, kills a chicken for me, dressed it, cooked it for dinner, knit a little, was feeling very sad about Isaiah. Nelson and Mary came on the boat tonight, got them supper. I appreciate, oh yeah, yeah,
So I'm just wondering what they can be allowed for that.
yeah, Brooksville,
Sorry.
yeah, the boat, yes.
One of our audience members has a paragraph they'd love to read to us from a 1918 diary.
Great.
To do it now or save it for the question and answer?
Maybe we can save it for the question and answer. That would be great. I'd love to hear that. Yeah. Oh, I like,
Do we know who Isaiah is? We don't know about this person to know who Isaiah is.
no, we don't. No, we don't. But you can tell some things about Isaiah for sure. And I appreciated this entry for just naming the fact that Thanksgiving is not always a festive and fun time in all ways. And even if it is in some ways, it's not in others. Yeah. So this is an unknown woman from the Baldwin area, 1952. I put this one in here because of this very particular format, kind of a rigid format, and she is very dedicated to keeping it. So Thanksgiving is on the 27th, beautiful Thanksgiving Day, worked until 3 p.m. We went to see George, read and sewed some.
I've never seen one that had it broken out by part of the day.
Part of the
before.
day, yeah. Yeah, and I also have never, there aren't so many people who really write in every slot of the day. Like most people will just write in one part of it. Okay, unknown near Gardiner, 1881. Another cold morning, Thanksgiving. I've been struggling with this for a while. Had butter to dress. Something about dressing, but we did not see anyone for the day. Maybe it's had better to dress. Maybe, I don't know what it is. But I thought it was interesting that so whoever this person is gets dressed up and then they don't see anybody for the day. So maybe there's some disappointment, maybe there's not. We don't know. So Sarah E. Stanley, Farmington, 1919. I'll blow this up a little bit. Thanksgiving Day, had for dinner turkey mince pie, plum pudding with sauce, hot rolls, celery. For supper, turkey mince, roots pudding. Roots pudding, I don't, this is my favorite part. Charles broke his plate, cup, and saucer. And Charles, yeah. Yes, that little party got wild there, yes. But I do appreciate that there's really not any judgment in that. It's Charles just did this thing and he wrote them. Okay, and then this is our last entry. Unknown, Brunswick, 1931. Up at 7:30 a.m. Rain, cold, have early dinner. Somebody's birthday, Jay's birthday, Thanksgiving. Went over New Bridge. Went to farm, saw George, Mamie S. very sick, has trained mouse. Trained mouse.
I about tuberculosis. But it doesn't, you're right, it looks like a mouse.
Maybe it is true. Maybe it is.
That's a freaking mouse, she does. Mouse. Wow.
I loved the oddness of that trained
Yeah.
mouse, and I also love the went over New Bridge.
Yeah. Is that the bridge that's now being replaced, do we think? Which is the new bridge in Brunswick in 1931?
Oh, see, this is where we need some historians to go do a little annotating here. 1931, what's the bridge? Yeah. And why would you train them out? Yeah.
Magic,
Yeah.
Stuart Little came to visit.
Good for
them.
Thanksgiving.
So and just as I'm enjoying people kind of talking about what this might say, what other things, what they might mean, and really part of the joy of these diaries is that it kind of, you need to crowdsource for people need to kind of get together to figure out what they say, what's it's talking about, and there are a lot of interesting projects that can come from diaries. So that's all the diaries we had to look at, and maybe I inspired you to write in diaries, or at least find some diaries and look them up.
I want someone else reading my junk.
You better get one with a lock on it, so I don't know if people have questions. I know someone would like to read a diary for us.
Yes, Susan would like to. Susan, whenever you're ready, you can unmute yourself and share your story.
Hi,
Hi, all right, hold on, let me try to turn up the volume over here.
is this loud enough?
Probably for others it is, for me it's really quiet, but.
I transcribed a bunch of diaries and then from
Yeah,
this woman in Sargentville. Is that loud enough?
Yeah.
And from Sargentville, and she someone found them under some stairs, they saved them. Anyway, I did this and it was fun to work on with my parents. This woman mentioned a lot of people in town, and so it was fun to kind of figure out who the people were and who the where they were and everything. So I have a big binder full of all the diaries. But so this is Thursday, November 28th, 1918. And she talked about all the food that she made for dinner. Do you want to hear it? Thanksgiving Day. It has been a lovely warm day with a bright sun, but I think it is going to storm. The wind sounds like it. Well, we had our usual company to dinner, Willie, Nell, and John. We had a good dinner. I had clam stew, corned fish, boiled beef with carrots, turnip, parsnips, cabbage, and potatoes with fresh pork gravy, mashed squash, biscuits with butter and cranberry sauce, mustard pickles, molasses cookies, sugar donuts, white fruit cake, chocolate cake, pumpkin, apple and blueberry pies, and tapioca pudding with whipped cream. And Nell brought down some cranberry tarts. We had a very pleasant time, and best of all, tonight I had a letter from Hal. That was her son. So anyway, that was quite a spread, don't you think?
Yeah, that was quite the feat.
That was an incredible amount of food there.
I know.
Wow, thank you, Susan.
Thank you for listening. That was fun.
Hi, this is Jan Akins, and I believe that word was not mouse, it was trained nurse. She has trained nurse.
Yes, thank you. See, these are the things we need. Less magical, much more practical. Sometimes I often will post our daily diary entries online. And I always appreciate when people will kind of crowdsource and, oh, that doesn't say mouse, that says nurse, and I'll have to go back and go and fix it. So,
What's the earliest diary?
we have, I think we have 1880 at the moment. Yeah.
Do you know the history of women keeping diaries? When did they start doing that? I mean, well, I know it has to be earlier, like Margaret Thatcher. What if not Margaret Thatcher? Oh,
Laurel Thatcher
Ulrich about
Yeah.
midwives. Yeah, midwives. Yeah, so that was a woman in the 18th century writing.
Right. Yes.
But I'm wondering if there was just more common starting the Victorian era.
Or possibly just that's when we were able to get a hold of them.
Yeah,
I mean, I think.
55,
Yeah, I mean, we're certainly not an exhaustive collection. We're trying to.
Guys keep diaries too?
I do keep a diary. Yep, I keep a little 5-year diary, which are fun to keep.
It's not in the Maine Women Writers.
Yeah, they won't be in the Maine Women Writers Collection.
We have both, and probably in the Wilson Museum's collection, there are both men's and women's diaries. I think there are probably more women's diaries than there are men's, but there are some men's. And I think we have some that may go back like 1830s-ish, maybe that are the earliest ones we have. Abby may know better, but mostly they do pick up around the Civil War and then from then on.
And how did the collection get started and why?
The Maine Women Writers Collection. Yes.
And specifically the diary.
Yes, well, the collection itself started in 1959 when Grace Dow and Dorothy Healy was an administrator at the then Westbrook College, and Grace Dow was an English professor. And they took a bunch of students up to Colby to hear someone who I don't know who it is, but it was a Maine woman writer. And they, on their way back to Westbrook, they kind of hatched a plan that somebody should collect writing by Maine women. And they started it off with a shoestring budget of a couple $100, and they bought an Edna St. Vincent Millay book. And then we've been kind of running since then. So yeah, and we certainly are trying to, I mean, our diary collection is relatively small, but we're kind of growing it as we're able to.
So George Wheeler, right downtown here, Maine Castine, brother, his book, I don't know if it's a history of Castine, but it seems like like a diary. I mean, I don't know how many people got sick that day, what was the types of crops that were happening before. We really got like a whole sense. So it's kind of like a diary, I guess. I mean, we just recorded everything. Great detail.
Yes, yeah. So that, I mean, so for those on online, that comment was about what was the man's name who wrote George Wheeler, who wrote in kind of a diaristic format, and I think
what yeah, it was kind of factual.
Yeah.
That might be the difference between men and women. Like women talk more about social things, what they baked, how whatever. Interactions.
Yeah.
And guys might feel like they have to write the information. They have to add information in that.
Yes. Let's not put any feelings in there. Yes.
No, he did. He put feelings in there.
Oh, good.
I read for about half of it. And there was some feelings, and it was interesting.
Well,
about the two islands that are renamed there. He didn't have a kind name. It was an N word. He used it right before he got it. And it was just, it kind of stunned me that I was like, what? And but it was at the time, and one little thing I remember him saying, there was a lot of boys showed up in town. Didn't know what to do with it, and someone said, "No, I'll buy it." So,
yeah, sure.
I didn't make it up, didn't I?
So one of the things that fascinates me, starting to think about other things that we can do with history, and it's something that is, so the weather is mentioned in so many of these.
Yes,
So when we think about how do we add time depth to understanding climate change,
yes,
that
yes,
diaries almost, in some cases religiously, they record the weather that day.
yes.
And it may not be super detailed, but the fact that if you were to amass together all of these recordings of what the weather was doing that day, you can have this incredible database of climate data
Yes,
over decades
Yeah.
or centuries.
There's a guy that was on the news the other day that he's walking around or traveling from town to town and getting to talk to people and ask them what the weather was. He's involved with climate change
Mm,
and is asking them what the weather was like when they were younger.
yeah,
This is like super detailed
Yeah.
data.
this is,
Of
this
every
is true,
day.
yeah.
This is what the
And
weather.
which is another plug for the army of transcriptionists, like to do that kind of work, yeah.
I think someone is wondering online if there are diaries from Castine that they can read. Do you know if there are ones from
We don't-
Castine?
We don't have, I don't think we have anyone from Castine. I think closest we got Brooksville, Penobscot, and I think that's about as close as we are. I did talk to someone on email today who had a Castine diary that she was gonna talk to us about.
This is like, no, I want that.
But maybe we should send it to Castine, yes.
We can share. And certainly there are, between the two collections, there are significant collections of diaries from Castine. I don't know about yours, but ours are not scanned.
No, but we have you might, I don't know if they can hear us. We have a volunteer who is transcribing a set of diaries for us. And it's a woman who lives off neck woman, which was particularly of interest to her. So, we have off neck and on neck, and it's like the great divide. So the off neck people tend to be farm people, and on neck, some farmers there too. But anyway, it's an interesting project. And
Yes.
She's a history professor and she's delving into it.
So valuable to
Yeah.
have people do that, yes.
Bring forth some interesting
Yeah,
themes.
yes, absolutely. That's what she's looking for.
Someone shared that Abigail Hawes kept diaries that are in the Castine Museum archives. She and her sister. Where is it?
You guys are.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Correction, in the Wilson Museum collection. She and her sister were educators in the 1800s. Marconi wrote a book based on some of the books. And those are for sale at the Wilson Museum gift shop.
And they are incredible reading. They
Yeah.
are so neat. You guys would love reading. If you
And we do have those diaries transcribed, but only in hard copy. So you would need to be visiting us on site to read them.
There is the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's the book about them.
Yeah, which may be. You can come to the gift shop and yeah.
But yeah, she kept diaries that we have for over the course of several decades.
Wow,
They're awesome. You would love reading.
yeah, it's very
And she talks
mesmerizing.
about banking the house.
All
That's what
right,
it's really about.
yes, good.
I never heard that before. Like banking.
Yes, yes.
What are the dates of her diaries, more or less? Are they 19th, 20th century?
19.
Second half of the 1800s.
Nice.
There's also a question that says, are there any diaries that mention industries, boat building, fishing, logging, etc.?
Good question. Yes, I'm sure there are. What those ones are, I don't know. We'll have to, this is part of this reason I think that we talk about diaries is to inspire people to come and do some research, because it takes a lot of research to dig into a diary and transcribe it and annotate it and figure out what's going on. And if you're someone who's interested in doing that, please contact with someone around here and we will connect you with those. So, yeah.
Alex says, I'm in.
Yes, Alex, you would be very good at this.
And Susan says the one I've transcribed has mention of the relatives going to work, dismantling the icebergs, fishing, etc. It's in Minnie Grindel's diary.
No, who's saying this?
I am. Oh, I disappeared, sorry. Hi,
What's your last name?
Webb.
Webb, Susan Webb. Okay.
So she doesn't really talk about them, like what they do, but just talks about going off to work and packing a lunch and getting home and things like that, you know, from her perspective, what was happening.
Neat. Cool, thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you, everybody, for your questions and your engagement here. It's really fun to talk about diaries. I think you can tell that once you get a little momentum talking about diaries, you can get going. So thank you all for your interest tonight.
Thank you.